a brief introduction. This topic, performance measurement in public sector organizations, as a separate topic to highlight further, because I think of the challenges that is faced by government organizations, because they don't have, in one hand, they don't have a common performance measure like the private sector, profit making organizations, and then now is because of that challenges, now there must be certain solutions. I think indirectly we have discussed that in the budgeting topics. Okay, both in I think as a general topic as well as a Malaysian in the Malaysian government. I think when we discuss outcome-based budgeting and modified MBS, okay, modified budgeting systems. Okay, I think the issue of performance measures, other than a financial measure, okay, which is the budget, the level of spending, the level of expenditures, have been introduced or incorporated together with the budgeting system. Okay, with a similar line of argument, so that's why this topic has been discussed to explain further what is needed, okay, to be introduced. That one, I think, even in MA also, a management accounting topic, in MA, that performance measurement, comprehensive performance measurement is also discussed, okay, as a separate topic. Okay, because the environment, business, I think both public sector environment and business environment are so dynamics that require, and then I think we'll discuss due to multiple stakeholders and to achieve the strategic objective organizations. So that's some of the basic reason why okay, we discuss this as a separate topic. Okay, and so we'll discuss on even discussion on the performance, okay, what it means with the performance of public sector organizations, and then we look at to the end problems of performance measurement in public sector organizations. I think generally this lecture will divide to two topics. So today we discuss around I think 1 hour time. Okay. Then another is will be discussed in the next class. Okay. Okay, 90 students. I need more students. The crowd should be 105, but nowadays I do understand it's very challenging. Okay, hopefully you can listen, and to make it a bit more interactive, we can always ask questions. Okay, I think fasting Ramadan should make us stronger, not weaker. Okay, inshallah. It's a month of very blessed month with full of barakah, and hopefully I think we should get benefit from this dearly. All right, so what is performance of organizations? If you can't define performance, you can't measure or manage it, right? But this is quite general, that if you cannot define performance. So this can be organizations, can also be individuals, right? So then you cannot measure. So if you can't measure, it means that measure here, I think for our discussion, so see, like we have profits. Profit is the measure. Then on top of that, there is a target for that profit, isn't it? So I think when we talk about profit, what comes to your mind when we talk about company's profit? What comes to your mind? Anyone?
Money, sir, money.
Revenue.
Performance.
Huh? Revenue, money. One more. And last one, performance. Sorry?
Share price.
Return or performance?
Share price, returns, but you know that you can imagine, okay, it can be in absolute number, okay, 100 million, it can be in terms of returns, 7%, 5%, 10%, okay, but it gives full idea of what need to be done and what need to be achieved, okay. So that is the measure is a profit, and the target will be the figure. Okay, can be 100 million, or it can be what do you call it? Yes, okay, or the figure like 5% or 10%. Once they understand that, they can mean okay. So, but if the performance is not known, then of course you cannot measure. Then once you cannot measure, it's very difficult to manage. Okay, particularly when to provide a clear communication between the, if you look at organizations, private or public, you are talking about managers, thousands of managers. If you look at multinational companies, okay, any you can name, there are 20,000 employees across the globe. Okay, how to manage them? Okay, so that's one. Of course, and at the same time, to please, to meet the expectations of the shareholders. Then that's why, you know, it need to be measured. Right? Performance measures define the success of organizations. Okay, the performance measures define the success of organizations. Right. Is there any meaning to you? Performance measures define the success of organizations. I think maybe at this point you a bit, it's like this is given to you, isn't it? It's like it's given to you. Performance measure defines the success of organizations. Right? For instance, like profit, because profit are so common that everybody understand. It become, you know, business language. It become, you know, internationally, you know, it's main part of doing business. Right? Of course, I mean, together with the financial statements, and definitely the investors, they get information not only within the financial statements but from others as well. But if you look at here, performance measures define success. I think if you change a bit, okay, in other words, okay, if the management, if the entity, they define their performance through any performance measure that they choose, so that measure will become their yardstick for success. Okay, so just take in your case. I think I did pose this question last time, isn't it? That if you are given a choice between a success, a measure of success, a measure of success. Let's say in your case, CGPA and attendance, class attendance. Okay, to measure your success. Do you agree? Are you with me, class?
Yes.
Okay, to measure success, there are two options. One is your CGPA, the other is your class attendance. Which one do you choose?
CGPA.
CGPA, good, okay. Only CGPA, no other? Oh, only CGPA. Huh?
Attitude.
Let's
What
say,
about
if you have the option, sorry?
so what about their curricular involvement that can define their success too?
No, I tried to simplify our discussion, okay? I tried to simplify our discussion, okay? If you are given a choice to measure your performance, okay, you're given a choice, okay, to measure your performance, okay, the measure is CGPA, one choice, the other is class attendance. So which one will you choose? And then this measure of success is recognized. All the stakeholders will be very happy. So which one will you choose? CGPA, current CGPA system or attendance?
Attendance.
Attendance.
Attendance or CGPA?
Attendance.
Attendance, huh? Why attendance, not CGPA?
Easier to achieve.
Easy to achieve. Okay, what else? One more. I think I know everybody is fasting.
If you attend class, it shows that you are disciplined.
Oh, okay.
Consistency.
Sorry?
Consistency.
Consistency. Okay. All right. Okay. But anyone choose the CGPA? If you are given a choice, okay. Very hypothetical, but I will relate this later on about our class discussion, our topic here. What? Unanimous, huh? Unanimously choose class attendance. All right, okay. But to make it a bit more complicated, of course, class attendance, you can promote, but some stakeholders can accept and the other may not accept. Okay. If you are given the choice, but of course, I mean, students don't have that choice, right? Because you have to compete. Okay, at the end, of course, after graduation, you can be any person that you like. And then, but I think majority of students generally they join or they take degree is to get one of the factors. Okay, it's not the main factor, but one of the main factors is to get employment. Correct? Or to improve their opportunities, social well-being opportunities as one options. I'm not saying that's for all, because generally the CGP have been tested over time, okay, over times. And because of that competition, right? But if you have the option, of course, class attendance will be the choice. Okay, just take note of that because when I mention performance measure define the success of organizations. Okay, in this case, basically you choose class attendance to define your success. Okay, the class attendance to define your success. Okay, but do you have any confidence in that choice that it will work? All right, okay. Maybe this is a difficult question. Okay, let me continue. All right, I'm not an issue. Okay, but just take note. Whatever performance measure, I think of course now we bring to the organization context. So organizations they choose their performance measure, and that will define their success. Okay, there are other issues later on we discuss. What is performance measurement for? For postmortem, okay. To make sure, I think this is one of the generally in the I think it's been performance measurement has been used basically for accountability, to make sure that to understand what they are doing, is it on the right track, muhasabah basically, to correct if there are something wrong, okay, and as well as learning. I think learning and muhasabah is quite close, where there are opportunities for improvement. Okay, so I think that's the basics for why we choose performance measure. But the other, of course, I mean, if we put in the context of organizations, right? Performance measurement, I think at this point also you will get the idea already, because we discussed performance measure for like in the MBS, like outcome-based budgeting. Okay, it's part of accountability. Okay, it's about performance of the individual managers. Okay, it's quite it's very important. Okay, it's very important part. Okay. Despite of our discussion, I'm not okay. You can also recognize the attributes of the current performance measurement, and then later on also we discuss on the challenges, because of the dynamics of business environment. Economic environment, or the environment, the socio-economic environment of government organizations, how they operate. Okay, very dynamic. And then together with nowadays, with so many factors. Changing. It's so fast changing. Okay, so how to basically capture those. Okay, so that I think I like also the idea of being promoted by professional body, including accounting, and then organizations. And then because of the crisis, we have to be adaptive or agile. Ready to accommodate or to take advantage of the changes that are taking place. I think those skills, and of course for organizations are capabilities. Maybe for individuals are skills. Okay, those skills you need to learn. That's why I think there's always what we call it, teams that are being used by practitioners, ready to learn, unlearn, and then learn and relearn or something. Okay, so in other words, because of the environment nowadays, the changing is very different. Okay, it's not just learning the what has been done before, but to be able to capture new opportunities. So I think that is very important. I think these are equally important for organizations as well as individuals. Okay, people like you, for instance. Okay. Right, performance measurement logic, categories of performance measures. I think so far, these are the categories that we have discussed. Okay, inputs, including finance, manpower, equipment, facilities, supplies, activities. Okay, activities of the agencies, and then of course activities that they provide for the services. Example here, consolidations of farmers, tourism. I think these are examples given when I think we discussed at outcome-based budgeting. Output, number of smallholders consolidated, number of inquiries by tourists, number of tourists coming to the country. Okay, as we put in the context of public sector. So output measures. Okay, I think this can be discussed at both level, at the whole government level. Okay, and as well as a government agency. And outcome. Okay, outcome, income growth for farmers, growth in numbers of tourist operators. Right, these are performance measures. So all these categories are needed. Okay, but just that for the contemporary ways of managing government organizations, so the emphasis on outcome and output, okay, are given clearly. Okay, these two must be clearly linked with the input and activities. Because we talk about budget, basically budget allocation referring to input and activities. Okay, but this is not sufficient. Okay, there must be clear link between output, outcome, linked to the inputs. Okay, so that's why I think in my class I always say that should manage outcome and outputs. Okay, because that is the needed to match the current environment. Okay, the importance of performance measurement, improving planning and control system. Okay, I think if you understand, to be fair, I think at this point we can also say the budgeting that we have discussed so far is also part of performance measurement, performance management mechanism. Okay, so budgeting is because for funding is part of the overall performance measurement system. Okay, so I think we discussed about improving planning and control. So I think if you understand what is for budgeting, you can also apply this in its topic. Improving the overall performance. Okay, so the note there, improve service delivery and value for money. Right, so because of you have that mechanism to understand what's going on. Okay, because performance measurement basically provide the information and the performance information that it can help the managers to monitor their performance. Not only that, I think both to monitor performance as well as to monitor to detect or identify opportunities as well. Okay, that's why the right measures are very important. The right performance measures, the relevant performance measures. Okay, so that's why I start the discussion with, to choose which measure that reflect your academic, your students, your performance as students, right? Because the right measure will, but the measure will determine the success. But is it the right measure? So this is also another question. Assisting public sector to focus on achieving organizational objective. Require managers to come up with targets for objectives to be achieved. I think if you look at our all discussions on performance measurement, is basically try to answer this number 3, okay, or to support number 3. That's the fundamental actually. I think if you want to anchor your knowledge on this performance measurement system, you anchor with this third point, okay? Basically, how to help achieving organizational objective. In other words, this organizational objective, okay? I think for us it's quite easy because we are part of IIUM. Okay, in IIUM now there are so many strategic objective. Okay, but I think the easy one that we can always hold on is Islamization. Okay. Islamization of knowledge, right? Now, of course, there are expansion of that Islamization of knowledge to include sejahtera and to include maqasid of Sharia, okay? But the fundamental remain the same. So, what are the right measures to be captured so that your IIUM can achieve this strategic objective? Okay. So I think you can also start thinking on, because you do the assignment, isn't it? You do the assignments and you have so many ministries that you study. Okay. And then I think from these ministries, okay, what are the relevant measures should be there to support? Okay. So the measures that is for the ministries level, for the agency under the ministries, that can reflect, can demonstrate the strategic objective of the organizations. Okay. Of course, I mean, for us, that's why I asked you to study certain areas, certain sectors in the public sector, and then certain agencies, so that you try to link this topic, okay, with those discussion, and you can study. Then you have a bit more detail. That's one. The other is because it's quite challenging. As I mentioned earlier, the choice of measures will determine the success. Okay. So and government, unlike the private sector is quite difficult for them to choose measures that is non-market based measures, because at the end of all the measures that they provide must link to their quality of services and product quality of their product that are accepted by the market. Quite straightforward. Okay, if they don't provide products accepted by the market, there is market penalty. Okay, they will lose the market, they will lose the market share, and then they may go even bankrupt. Okay, or they may no longer can do business because they are under market mechanism. Whereas in government organizations, they don't have that. Okay, so just like they don't have those mechanism to make sure that they have to choose that level of performance measure. Okay, basically through the strength of planning mechanism, policy, quality, okay, the engagement with stakeholders, okay, the capabilities of the civil servants. Those qualities will achieve, for them to be able to choose the right measures that can support this third point. Okay, Right, and improve the quality of decision making among public sector managers. With performance information, managers have direct knowledge of progress and achievement. I think here, okay, even give example there, customer service, financial management, project progress. Here is basically in the organization, they must have comprehensive performance measures. I think in one hand, not to over restrict. Okay, it must provide flexibilities, but the dimensions must be comprehensive enough so that the managers will be able to manage the organizations in the right way. Okay, because if they don't have the measures, they will be, I think at this point you understand balance scorecard, isn't it? And the principle behind the balance scorecards. Of course, balance scorecard also need to be revised or revamped because of the current uh, environment, okay, disruptive environment. But the idea is still the same. So with comprehensive, relevant performance information, then the organization can be managed better. Okay. Of course, there is question of who at what level need to be more detailed information, and at least at the line managers level, those who are basically providing the services, they are use public money to provide the relevant services to the target groups. Okay, to the public, for instance. Okay, they must have the right tools, including the performance information, for them to be able to deliver. Okay, of course, at the same time, they must also performance information so that the government as a whole can support what they are doing. Okay, so of course, I just providing a theoretical perspective, but these are the direction that should be we move forward. Okay, but to what extent the system, information system can provide, and then the current performance measurement system of the organizations can provide, these are the challenges subjected to study, and of course, the organizations must work on it. Okay. Promote learning in organizations, right? So with the, as I mentioned, with the relevant performance information, then they can work better. Okay, because they will understand the organization better with the relevant performance measure. It can be, I think, in one way that is what accounting is good at. Okay, to make visible, to make invisible visible. Okay, I think this is accounting tagline, to make invisible visible. Right? Do you agree or not? Okay, actually, this is what we are doing. Make invisible visible. Okay, in accounting. If you think about sales, you cannot see sales. Okay, but you can just see money flow, cash inflow, and then product are being delivered. But you cannot see sales. But accounting provide that technology techniques that the shareholders, that the managers, they can see sales, right, through the financial statements. Okay, performance information. But how this also can be applied in the public sector. Okay, where there are no sales. Okay, but they have expenses definitely, right? So performance information and performance measurement system can help in this. Improve the level of accountability of public sectors. Okay, I think performance reporting, they can be improving the internal accountability as well as external accountability. I think you can also understand this when we discuss outcome-based budgeting and MBS. Promote delegations of authorities and responsibilities. I think we discussed this as well. Okay, with MBS, there's more flexibilities. That's why, as I said earlier, okay, with KPIs, with performance measures, you can delegate. Okay, that's the idea. And then because the control is with the KPI, so the top management, they must hold the what do you call it? Because at the same time, it is recognized, okay, that very competent managers, they should be given flexibility. Any question? It is recognized. I mean, both in public, also in private sector. That particularly when the business environment are so dynamic, so many dynamic here means there are so many factors need to be managed. and keep on fast changing environment. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, the organization should be agile. Okay, the word agility not only used by private sector organization, profit making, even the public sector. Okay, our university now use the word agility. All right. So this morning I received an extension of my term as administrator for another 1 month. So rector mentioned they use the word agility. Okay, so that because we are facing crisis time, so we need but in this case, what I'm saying is the managers need flexibilities. Okay, but how to control them at the same time? They have all the flexibilities, but we need control. Otherwise, there is no direction. It can be very do something, can do harm also to organizations. So how to control is to the KPIs, the performance measures. But the type of performance measures must match with the level of autonomy that they have. Okay, you're not going to the KPIs shouldn't be too detailed that they lose their flexibilities. Okay, assist public sector organizations to address the different needs of variety of stakeholders. Okay, these are also very relevant to government organizations, but for them to be able to do that effectively, so they must have multiple KPIs that every stakeholders, there are KPIs for them to achieve. Okay. Right, performance versus accountability. Yeah. Okay, I think that's the idea. Okay, but I put it like as if it is in the continuum. But it can also be if it is designed properly. Okay, the performance measurement system, that is just like two sides of the coins. Okay, good performance require good accountability, right? And with the goods with the right set of accountability mechanism will promote good performance. Okay, so that's the idea. Huh? Bring transparency insight to its main service, the cost of output and how much a particular activity contributes to output, lead to rationalization. What get measured get done. Okay, I think we discussed that. Okay, what get measured get done is good, but it can be dangerous as well. Okay, good in the sense that what is important get measured and will be managed and will be achieved. But what is the danger is if it is over reliance, okay, and then the KPIs is not really because over time, okay, that's why I think strategic planning should be between 3 to 5 years. Nowadays, maybe strategic planning period should be within 3 years, okay, because of the current situation, okay. And then the quality of the measures, okay, need to be to make sure that it's still relevant. Input-output relationship become more transparent. Okay, here I think we discuss because basically the third point there, input-output relationship explain efficiency. If you talk about efficiency, is basically input-output relationships. Okay, but if you understand efficiency, then it's basically you understand the third point, input-output relationships. Okay, but it's just that sometimes for government organizations to measure efficiency cannot be done directly. Then that's why it's been translated into input-output relationships. Okay, but for people like you, I mean, with accounting background and finance, economics, definitely the word efficiency is something very close to you, and you can understand it better. Huh? But interestingly, I mean, the word efficiency is being used. That's why I think in this class we talk about value for money. Okay, economy, efficiency, effectiveness. But the word profit is profit. Achieving profit is being efficient. Okay, so that's maybe for you to answer, but you don't have to answer now. Okay, because you study to measure profit for over 4 years, but will end up with a high profit. That means the organization is efficient. Okay, right. But because it is not directly being taught in class, isn't it? Second point, Weber theory of bureaucracy, increased transparency may reduce the opportunity to hide inefficiencies and ineffectiveness. Okay, very interesting. Okay, with transparency, that's why I think the demand for transparency, I think nowadays is quite. It's been the call for government organizations to be transparent is always there. Okay, It's been from time to time the same team that is required. Okay, sometimes because of the call by the public, then the government will introduce a certain reporting mechanism that improve transparency. All right, so the response is there. Okay, but can they meet the expectation of the public? So these are still ongoing issues. And of course, when it comes to scandals, and then it will create more demands for transparency. PM will work as an efficiency driver if it is based on internal and realistic measures. Okay, internal initiated PMS has higher probability of success than externally imposed PMS. Okay, so I think if you look at the last point there, so there are two categories of performance measure: internally developed as well as externally imposed. Okay, so these two categories. So how that organization will work. Okay, in the case of government agencies, it's quite clear because there are externally imposed PMS. We discussed about outcome-based budgeting. Okay, there are other performance measure as well. Can be imposed by the because of certain policies, because of certain demands, can be imposed by the parent ministry. Okay, even in the case of MBS, okay, and outcome-based budgeting. Of course, outcome-based budgeting is Prime Minister is basically is dictating the performance measure to the minister and to the ministries, this cascading down. Okay, whereas in the case of MBS, it's requirements by the Treasury, okay, for the government, for the controlling officers to achieve. Okay, but in this question also, because sometimes they are sharing same categories of performance measure, okay, output, outcome, okay, and input. That is very broad categories, but to make it meaningfully, that's why the internally generated performance measures need to be developed. Because at the end, who understand the operation of the organizations and the strategic matters of the organization is the management of the agency, okay? Because they have the internal information, they understand the industry that they work in, or the sector they work in. They are in the best position to have the direct knowledge for them to be able to develop what are the right measures for each sector, okay? But in any case, the last point there, external PMS encourage window dressing. Okay, so window dressing means for the sake of reporting. Okay, or you do something for the sake of to meet the requirements, right? So it's just like when you do assignment, isn't it? Let me ask you this question: when you do assignment, do you really study to understand the topic with regard to the assignment, or you just do the assignment so that you can submit your assignment? Which one? Generally,
Study first.
you study, to get the knowledge, or you just do assignment for the sake of submission.
Get the knowledge.
Study to get the
Knowledge, sir.
knowledge.
I want knowledge.
Sir.
Oh, you want knowledge? Oh, okay, very
Knowledge
positive.
number one, sir.
Oh, knowledge number one. Number two is just to comply, isn't it? Yes.
Number two, marks.
Number one to just for submission purposes, or number one is for knowledge purposes. Which one?
Knowledge, sir. Knowledge.
Knowledge.
Because I'm not yet marked your assignment, isn't it? After marking after the semester end, then you will ask this question again. I submit this, I do the assignment for complying to get the marks or for knowledge purposes. You can ask again. But anyway, you know yourself, all right? What I'm saying is, right, because it can also comply. Comply means they just submit for the sake of submission to meet. Because if they fail to submit what is required by the private ministry, it will looks bad on the agency. Okay, looks bad on the management as well. Okay, because this is very important. Because you are talking about support, you're talking about there are other issues, management issues. Okay, but of course, ideally, if you look at it, to achieve the objective, it should be internally initiated. That's why I think in practice, it's kind of both. So the parent ministry will provide very broad categories of performance measure, but the agency itself, they will internally develop the performance measure within the framework that is provided by the parent ministry. Okay, so that's why if you look at just now, we put measure categories and outcome, output, input. These are very broad, but the agency itself can decide what is basically the measure. Okay, later on. Later on, I think we look at examples. It's a bit easier. Right, basis for this PMS are more effective when they concentrate on strategic planning purposes and are not used primarily as accountability tool. Okay, so accountability is about reporting. In your case, about submission. If you don't submit, before you get the penalty. But of course, depending on your target, isn't it? You said, okay, this subject try to get very highest mark. Okay, of course. If you said, okay, this subject, because so difficult, maybe, you have that arrangement. So, but in any case, in the case of performance measurement system, it should, the basically to support in achieving strategic planning or strategic objective organization. All right, development of relevant performance measures. That's why we discussed this. At the end, what is important is if they have the set of performance measure which is important that can really achieve their strategic objective. So we'll discuss on the relevance, developing performance measure, the influence of multiple stakeholders, role of top management, reporting units, and approach of implementation. Okay, I think we discussed that, influence of stakeholders. So match the expectations of stakeholders, interplay disclosure of indicators, right? Extent of influence, mediating instruments. So if you look at regulators, parliament and the treasuries, internal stakeholders, of course, I include parent ministry as part of internal stakeholders. Of course, in the end, they also link, because parent ministry is also accountable to the parliament, okay? And controlling officers, they are closely related to the treasury. And external stakeholders, pressure groups, and also voters. So they have to measure, okay? One way is basically different stakeholders have different set of performance measure. Can also be overlapping because what is required by the parliament can also be translated by what is required by the parent ministry. Then they can be, overlap. I mean, common to address common stakeholders, right? And at the same time, the line managers, top management, they also have to provide good services, okay, with long-term perspective to achieve their objective. Of course, at the end, definitely will support government policies as well as what is needed by the Prime Minister and the Parliament. Okay, so they must to be able to sustain, because at the end, they are interrelated. Particularly at the end of the government agency, they also have users, services. Okay, those services must be at a certain quality that can meet the expectations of the customers. I think that's the key that you can think of. But there are also challenges sometimes where funding can also be used for others other than need to be used to mainly to provide the services, main services of the organizations. Okay, so these can be an issue. Reporting units or performance measure, okay, agency, departments, study bodies, okay, definitely I think at this point we can understand, as we discussed for budgeting purposes, okay, each one of them can become a performance unit, okay, reporting units become a reporting units, okay, and then of course the heads of each unit, okay, in the case of departments, divisions in departments, statutory bodies, okay, maybe companies under statutory bodies, in their agencies. Okay, program can also be reporting unit, and then activity can also be a reporting unit. I mean, if you take in our case like IUM, definitely kuliah is also a reporting unit. Department is part of kuliah as a reporting unit for the performance measures. Okay, so there are a lot of performance measures been collected. Okay, for university purposes, for ministry purposes. Okay, sometimes we're also helping the government as a whole. A reporting unit that have input and output relationships. I think that's the idea. Right? That's the guide. How you're going to go about to develop the reporting unit. Okay. So at the end, they must be able, but of course, I mean, they must have status. Generally, of course, for government organizations, I mean, the unit also receive somehow budget for it. There is budget. Okay, performance reporting and monitoring. Okay, once you have performance, okay, of course, firstly, performance reporting. With the performance reporting, we have the monitoring, right? Right. What some example of performance reporting here? Performance report, including league tables, right? Annual reports to National Audit Office, internal reports by the head of administration to, and also to the Parliament, to the Prime Ministry, as well as to the Parliament, or to the person one tier up in the hierarchy. Okay, it can be line managers to the top management. Okay, these are performance reports. So here, my discussion is I look at micro as well at the agency level as well as government as a whole. So league table is for the government as a whole. I think, for instance, like National Audit Department also, they have this. I mean, comparing like local governments, there are star rating and others. Last time there was a quality where there is ranking. I think if you look at if there are government agencies are being ranked, generally you can call that as a league tables. But they're not ranked 1 or 2, but they use star points, star ratings, 5-star, 3-star, and all that, just like the hotel. Okay, performance monitoring and ongoing systematic review of the performance, comparing between actual and targets, right? Okay, so these are basically equally applicable for private sector. Sorry, for the, what do you call it? Yeah, private sector as well as public sectors. And I think we discussed about budget and also for, I think our discussion now, not only for financial, it's non-financial performance information as well. Use of performance dashboard, okay, can be online or real-time monitoring. I think in government now it's quite common use of dashboard. I think for us, you can see on TV how the DG, the Director General, Tan Sri Hisham, basically monitoring, Dr. Hisham, monitoring the COVID, sharing to the public. They use a performance dashboard. Okay, so you can see that as an example. So that is not only for the, I mean, nowadays it's quite common, but the ability to use, and then definitely to use the underlying performance dashboard as for the presentation. Okay, maybe they can use this performance data, and also the use of big data in the performance dashboard. Okay, so the data extraction, I think maybe they can use Tableau and others. How to manage the data, they can use Python. These are maybe some of the what do you call it? General knowledge or some extra skills that maybe your generation you have to learn them as part of your skills, just to improve your skills. Okay, and performance evaluation, assessing in depth and judging the effectiveness of government policy and programs. Okay, performance evaluation, I think, can be done at both at the agency and ministry level, as well as at the end at the parliament. I think if you look at budget, we talk about budget scrutiny and others, okay, by the Public Account Committee, definitely performance, to what extent they can achieve what has been budgeted for. These are part of ex post monitoring. So in this case, okay, when comprehensive performance information are available, so they can use this as a basis for their performance monitoring. Okay, implementation of performance measurement, okay, can be top down, mainly top down. It can be bottom up. Okay, let me see. Right. So in this case, implementation can be mainly top down. The primary focus of the top down approach is oriented towards accountability and control. Not only that, I think top management can provide strategic focus. Okay. Secondly, bottom up, a greater concern for promoting improvement in performance. Bottom up, I mean the feedback. Okay, what are the right measures that should be used? These are line managers who are basically addressing. Like in our case, of course, the head of departments, the deans, they understand what is the best programs for the students. Okay, so we have evaluation, we have review. So we are the one who be able to come up with the right measures so that our program is good program, okay, very strong quality programs, okay. But of course, the top management won't be able to understand the details. So that's why I think performance information from both sides need to be aligned. Okay, so that's the idea. It's not only one way, but if it only top down, then it will be problematic. Of course, will not be able to put in operation. Okay, but if the top management insists, and then it can create organization breakdown. But if it is only bottom up, and then then the issue of achieving the strategic objective organization may also can be a problem, okay, because sometimes line managers may fail to see the big picture, right? So there must be alignment between these two sides. Right, okay, top down, this approach tend not to be integrated into management process and fail to engage commitment of middle juniors management. That is another issue. That's why such a CM neglect the view of service users and therefore tend to contain few measures of relevance to management needs. Okay, this particularly if there are overly imposed performance measure by the parent ministry to the agency. So there must be balance. I mean, through discussion and engagement, this can be addressed. Attributes of effective performance measures, diverse and complementary, causally related. Okay, I think if you understand balance scorecard, this basically this attribute. Measures should be smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-oriented, informative, cost-effective, strategic orientation, incentive for improvement. Okay, so in other words, if you look at these attributes, okay, I think in the process of developing the performance measure, or in the process of particularly at the agency level, at organizations, I think in one way or another, in the future in your career, definitely you will get involved in developing these performance measurements. Either you are as accountant or you as managers. Okay, if you are part of top management, definitely you will get involved. But the idea is, if you can test, you can stress test the performance measure. Okay, those measures being developed, can they achieve this or not? These are the questions you need to ask, and those who develop those measures, they must be able to answer. Okay, they must be able to justify. And of course, with knowledge and experience in the sector, in the business of the organizations, you should be able to tell. Okay, are they in the right direction or not? So that negotiations and also engagement makes to develop the relevance performance measures. Okay. Right, and then now we move to look at the development over the years, right? So before 1990s, it's very input based, rule compliance. I think we discussed that also when we discussed the management budgeting techniques. And then 1990s to 2010, 3 E's, quality, customer satisfaction, right? And now at our time, not only the 3 E's is important, okay, outcome and impact. But the organizations now, even the government, they're also focusing on SDG focus. Okay, so I think if you look at SDG, even our university are basically responding to that, the requirement of SDG. Okay, but only thing I think the SDG is happening, I think, more focused by Malaysian government for the past 2-3 years. I think in that way, I think I'm of view of that. Our university is a bit leading of that before and then nowadays I think even for the next Malaysian plan, SDG is basically is already part of the planning. Okay. Right. I think you may see this table. In other course, in another part, okay, there are 17 SDG goals by United Nations. Right, so our universities put this into our planning, and now the nation government, okay, basically committed towards achieving this SDG. Right, so which goal that you want to contribute, or maybe you can answer for the agency and your assignment, which SDG goal that they can contribute. Okay, so that kind of question can be answered. Anyone want to comment? Which SDG goal your assignment or the agency in your assignment can contribute? Anyone? One or two answer? Are you still with me or gone already?
The assignment one.
Yeah, so which SDG goal? Nur Atira.
11. Because our
11.
group do public transport.
Okay, very good. Okay, another one.
Yeah.
Another group. Brother now.
mm,
Yes, sister. Whoever. One more.
okay,
Yeah, Hannah. Which SDG?
SDG 12, responsible consumption and reduction.
Yes. Hello.
Yeah, we're doing environmental and sustainable.
I can't hear you.
See? You can't hear me? Hello?
Yeah, very slow voice. All right. Anyway, one more. Transportation.
my group, sir.
Sorry.
We're doing the sexual harassment. So our SDG is the peace, justice, and strong institution. The number 16 goal.
Number 16. Okay. All right. Good. So you got it, huh? Alhamdulillah. So of course, I mean, you can clearly attribute to these goals. Okay, and government agencies should be supporting this. Huh? Right, attributes of traditional performance measure mainly focus on financial measures, absent of common performance measures such as profitability in the private sector, concern on rule compliance, reflecting inputs and process orientation, achieving for results. I think for the last point, rules of compliance here means compliance to budget. Budget is basically, let's say they receive 500 million allocation, so they need to finish off. Okay, so in that way, be able to spend all the budget allocation. It's like a kind of rule compliance as well. Okay, on top of that, they can also, because of PMS imposed measures being imposed by the parent ministry, and because of the lack of relevance, then they can just focus on compliance rather than usefulness of the performance information. Okay, input and process orientation. Right, impact of new public management on performance measurement. Okay, I think I spent another 5 minutes. Right, of course, it's focusing on result based, right? And then if you look at in the case of UK, next step agencies are required to produce planning document containing mission statement, strategy, and business plan with performance measures and targets were an integral part of it. New Zealand's okay, to push further to distinguish responsibility for output by civil servant and outcomes by elected ministers. Okay, consistent with the purchaser provider split mechanism. So these are how the way to move forward. Because at the end, if you talk about who should be accountable, there must be a specific person should be accountable to each KPI. So who will be that? Okay, so this can explain. So in the case of New Zealand, they make the outcome is in the hands of the elected ministers, whereas the government agencies focusing on the relevant quality services. Okay. And then control become more strategic in that sense, because achieving of result-based accountability. Right, I think I give an example here in the case of UK state agencies. Okay, we'll have a look at business planning. Right, I think for that I will have to share. Quickly, where is it? All right, this one. Okay, yep. Right, you can see, these are the business plan. These are executive agency is just like government agency in Malaysia, it's like statutory body. Okay, here, but over there, I mean, even like here, this basically like JPJ, Public Transport Department. But here, the one of the agency they call it Driver and Vehicle Standard Agency. Okay, it is their business plan. You can have a read. You can download. Or you can just read. Okay. This is their business planning. Even business planning also they share to the public, right? What they have to achieve, and then with that, they have the targets. Okay, category of the targets. These are the performance measure. Okay, what are their targets? Maintain 80% performance level by regional zone. Candidates booking their car practical test within 6 weeks of preferred date. 80% by region. Okay, so in the case of Malaysia, so this testing also still in the government. I think in Malaysia now is outsourced to to private sector. Offer candidates an appointment at their preferred theory test. Okay, so 95% of target. Helping you keep your vehicle safe to drive. Confirm reservations honored at authorized testing facilities. It is basically, I think their car need to be tested every year. Okay, they must get test that the car is safe to be driven. So MOT, right? So 98% by region. So they have the target. They being shared to the public, and these are categories. Okay, there are financial plan, even customers. All right. So these are the major targets. So with that targets, okay, let me come back. Okay, and then another. So if you look at if you look at here, okay, that is business planning and then annual reports. So business planning is beginning of the year, annual reports at the end of the year, isn't it? Generally, we understand annual reports. You can, I provide that link, so you can click yourself, right? But anyway, for class, I just quickly share. These are the annual reports. Okay, right. The annual reports. Just if you look at this, just like what you understand annual reports, like companies annual reports. So then they will share the performance there. Okay, performance report, page 7, and they provide analysis as well. Okay, so to what extent they achieve those performance. These are performance highlight. Of course, government don't have profits, so they cannot share profits. But they share what their KPIs. These are KPIs, right? Targets, and then based on zones. Okay, some achieve, I think mostly achieve, but one zone cannot achieve. Okay, so this is how they report their performance. Okay, so in that sense, they can provide. It's possible. These are, and if you look at the measures, it can be activity as well as outcome based. Outcome, for instance, like no satisfaction of the customers. Okay, customer stakeholders, right? So there are mechanisms how to measure them, and they achieve all. Right, of course, they can raise question as well. Okay, these are self-reporting, to what extent it's reliable, whatever. But the most important is this performance information is being shared, okay, through planning as well as through what do you call, annual reports, okay. Right, as an example, that how performance report are being shared. Because we discussed about increasing transparency in others. All right, I think for today's class, I will stop at this point. Any question? Any question, class? All right, so if no question, I will end this. I will end this class with wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.